Hi, my name is Tom Berge from the Minneapolis area. Several years ago, I had a VFR and IMC encounter, which I was lucky to live through. I was in a flight of 2 Vans RVs on a vacation to Alaska. And we have been trying to get from Yakutat up to Cordova. And we had been pushed down to probably about 50 to 75 feet or so off the water. All of a sudden, right in front, the fog bank, cloud bank, whatever, popped up. My partner who was in front disappeared off to my left. I simply reacted and pulled up. Up was better than down. I'm a 1,000-hour VFR pilot, no instrument rating. The sounds did not match the sensations. The whiskey compass is just spinning like a top. I fell out of the clouds and caught the airplane just before I impacted the trees and instinctively pulled back up. In fact, I had pulled up a total of 3 times and had fallen out each time. Each time I managed to fall to the right, which led me further inland. After the 3rd fall out, I stayed out and counted my visibility out at about 3 seconds, which was not a whole heck of a lot. At that point, my brain was shrinking up. The thought I had was fighting off the thought to simply roll the airplane over, because I knew I was dead. I knew there was no way I was going to get out of this. I made a big mistake. I was done for. But I managed to keep flying. I had no plan at that point. The brain was still shrinking up. And then a meadow popped up in front of me. And as soon as I seen it, I realized that that was probably not such a bad place to be. So I dropped down into the meadow. This was an oval-shaped meadow that was surrounded by tall pine trees. So I'm in this constant bank going around this meadow. And every time I came around this meadow, I had to hop over this line of trees that came in, and I would hit the ragged bottoms of the ceiling. And then I'd have to drop back down below the tops of the trees. In the meadow, I had gotten a chance to glance over at the Loran, which by then had settled down on its position. And I could read back to my partner that long position so he could find me on a map. Once that was accomplished, he gave me a way out of the situation to head south. So what I did is, on the longer edges of this oval, I started to level out the wings as quickly as I could to give the compass time to settle down. And I distinctly remember seeing pine needles slide underneath the wing. They were that crystal clear. That's how close I was to them, hoping the gear didn't get caught up because I had no idea what was in front of me. I popped out of that mist, and the first thing I recall seeing to my right was the bottom of a tree which was above me. And I made about a 30-degree correction to my left and continued on, still with my 3 seconds of visibility, still at 120 knots and very low, and I slid out over the water. And I knew that if I lost sight of land, I would lose all my situational reference and I would lose control. So I banked as hard as I could. And I remember seeing just a little sliver of land over my left shoulder. And I just kept that in sight and kept pulling. And I would glance down at the wingtip to make sure I was keeping it out of the water, and it was very close. I pulled back in over the shore and then headed off to the east, and within a few moments I was back out into the VFR conditions. The radio was rather silent on the way back to Yakutat, but we figured that my location was within about a nautical mile or so of 3 1,000-foot ridges. And I believe that when I exited the meadow, that the tree bottom I seen was the rising terrain that was leading up to one of these ridges. When I sit back and I look at some of the mistakes I made, other than the obvious of getting into that situation in the first place, I realistically should have stayed in the meadow. I mean, I could have powered back and leaned it out and stayed in that meadow for somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 5 hours and simply waited. And then, of course, I always had the option of putting the airplane down in the meadow. I would have lost the airplane, but I would have more than likely walked away. When I left the meadow, my risk shot way up. I had the wing leveler on the autopilot. I wasn't trained to simply reach over and turn it on, and it never occurred to me to slow down. Those were things that hurt me. When you're flying with other pilots, fly your airplane and make your own decisions. And be safe. Stay out of the clouds. Once you're in, your ability to think will shrink up very rapidly. But I did get lucky, extremely lucky. 9 months after this experience, I ended up getting my airplane equipped for IFR flight, and 9 months after that, I did end up getting my instrument rating. I plan on avoiding this situation in the future.